Hey, are you a salesperson that's looking to sell more of your products or services? Then you're in luck today. What you learned is you're now learning how to use your tonality and questioning to get the prospect to let their guard down. When you've learned that, where have your sales gone? Yeah? So what's a good maybe connection question you've learned, and what does it do with the prospect? How do they react to it?
Well, I mean, as far as connecting, it's really like,
Make sure you watch the video all the way to the end, because even at the very end, we're going to show you different disarming techniques and certain questions we've trained her how to ask that actually get the prospects to let their guard down and trust you enough to open up and tell you what their real problems are. You're welcome for this interview. Every Wednesday, we interview a different client, and we typically will pick a different industry, and we break down their sales process for you and kind of show you kind of what they're doing once they've learned from us, like NEPQ. They might be in different training programs of ours, and then we let you guys ask them questions. All right, now when you ask questions, make sure you tell us what industry you're in. Like if you sell SaaS or whatever, like I sell SaaS and I do inbound leads, or I get outbound leads, or I cold call. Tell us what industry you're in. So I want everybody to tell us what industry you're in and what you actually sell in the comments. And let me look at that here. All right, perfect. All right. People are starting to come on now. So every Wednesday we interview a new client. Now, if you're brand new, you just started following me here in the Facebook group. I'm Jeremy Miner. Obviously, I'm the founder of Seventh Level. We are you should know this if you're in this group, but we're a sales training company that trains salespeople exactly like you, watching me and Jen here. We train salespeople like you, sales professionals like you, consultants, coaches, business owners, entrepreneurs, sales leaders, sales managers, VPs of sales, and we train you and your team specific techniques that work with human behavior rather than work against it. Okay, and we're going to interview this client, Jen, and kind of talk to you about the results she's gotten even in the last 3 or 4 months. All right, Jen. So, okay, let's start here. You got cool glasses. Where do you live, Jen?
I live in Connecticut. I'm in the U.S.
Okay, so you're on the East Coast, and then why don't you tell, because everybody's going to want to know, like, what do you actually sell? Like, what industry are you in?
Yep. So I'm in high ticket network marketing. So it's
Okay.
direct sales industry.
Okay.
It's a very interesting thing, which people can get confused about. So we have, we would say an incredible product. I'm very passionate about.
Sure.
They're medical grade water ionizers. Tons of people are finding out about them. But not only do we sell this product for just next level health and wellness benefits,
Yeah.
it's also network marketing. So it's
Yeah.
a business where people come in and they can start a high ticket,
Okay.
business.
So
through us.
it's in the network marketing business. You're selling a much needed product because you're providing water that actually is good for you, I'm assuming. I even have one of your guys' machines.
You do.
I think I bought it like 8 years ago. I probably need an upgrade or something. But yeah, it helps with different diseases, other things. But you're also building a business, and I'm assuming when people come to you or you go to them, I'm assuming the problems you solve for them, besides on the product side, is if they want to start a business, they want to make more money, they want to have more time with their family, right? That's kind of what your industry is about. Now, how long have you been in your industry?
3 years, just over 3 years.
Okay, 3. And what did you do before?
So my first ever sales gig was in college. I actually did cold calling, door-to-door credit card processing sales.
Okay.
So I learned the old method of selling. So when I came into this, it was very interesting. But before this, I was in health insurance. I was a financial underwriter. So I dealt with all the salespeople, did a lot of negotiations that way. And I also had a small business of my own, but very different than this type of business.
Okay, so you got into network marketing, and I met you like probably 7-8 minutes before we jumped here on this live to kind of understand kind of your background and stuff. And you said you have a very bubbly personality, right? So you're like really excited, you're bubbly. And so when you got into network marketing, how did that translate?
So it was amazing when I first got started because I had an audience built up, people who liked me, knew me, trust me, and they were excited alongside of me. So, I was that person in the DMs, just tons of like emojis and exclamation points and just getting super excited. And it kind of worked until it didn't anymore. And I noticed I'd be running ads and people who would come in, they just start ghosting you. They're not responding.
Yeah, so the people that trusted you, that were really close, you could sell to them that way because they already trusted you. But when you got leads and other prospects, you were just,
Well, even the people who trusted me, my excitement and enthusiasm kind of overflowed a little bit too much, that I definitely turned off people that liked me and knew me and trusted me too.
And from what I understand, you got into our training about a year ago, and we'll talk about that. What caused you to be like, hey, maybe I need to learn how to sell more. Maybe I need to learn more techniques, like, or better sales techniques. What caused that in your mind?
Yeah, of course. So, I mean, I was doing pretty well. I mean, not insanely well. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, in my full-time corporate job, all I ever made was like $4,000 a month. So when
Yeah.
I was making like $5,000 to $8,000 a month in my network marketing business, I was like, oh, this is nice, but
Sure.
there's so much more that can be done,
Yeah.
right? It's like high ticket sales. I can make that much in one sale. And I'm like, I need to help more than one or two people a month.
Yeah.
And I was getting to a point where it's like I was either triggering or turning people off so much, or I didn't feel confident in speaking to people and objection handling. And I'm the type of person, it's uncomfortable to say this, but
Yeah.
I've literally had everything handed to me in life. And so when you get to this point, and everyone's not just falling over you saying yes,
Yeah.
you start getting really frustrated and you really don't know how to deal with it because you've never been put in that position in your life.
So you're saying you're a human and you don't like going through rejection? Yeah.
Well, it wasn't necessarily rejection. It's just like it wasn't getting handed to me. They weren't saying no. It's just like they weren't saying yes. And I didn't know how to talk to them. I didn't know how to have conversations and communication, right? And a friend actually started sending me your reels because she knew I was looking for help.
Yeah.
And I knew I needed help. I'm like, I know I need help talking to people, getting better skills. I need help more than one or two people a month. I'm trying to create like a global, organization here.
Yeah. You gotta learn more advanced skills. Okay, so you get into the training, and then all of a sudden, like, some health issues slap you across the face, and you're down for like 8 or 9 months, right?
Pretty much.
Yeah. Okay, so that's disheartening. So you're down, and then about 3+ months ago, you come back into it. You jump into the training, and what did you start to notice happened with your prospects? What changed?
Well, so here's what happened. So even during the time after the head injury that I got, I was still slowly working and integrating like with NEPQ. I just really wasn't able to go out there and actually
you weren't using
apply it. Yeah, I wasn't able to apply myself and implement, but I was still learning in the background and doing the best that I could. So, your team actually did help me in the interim of some of that stuff. I had like my first like $20,000 month with the help of you guys.
Yeah.
And then, now that I'm able to get back out there, I am able to speak with people with ease. I'm getting on the phone. I'm feeling confident. People are saying yes to me, which is amazing.
Good.
And like it's because of the questions that I'm asking them from what I learned with you guys.
Perfect. And you're still learning. I mean, the best part is you're really only into the training like 90 days or so, which can't master something like that in 90 days. Training is something we do on a daily basis, not something we did if we want to make a lot more sales. But so let's walk through about how the prospects started to treat you though differently. So once you really dove in, let's say 3+ months ago, you started getting back on calls, recruiting, selling. What changed that you could tell from your prospects and how they reacted to you, treated you? What was different?
Oh, they were just really responsive. They were excited to talk to me. They were excited to hear from me. They were excited to get on a call together and go through solutions, whereas before it would just be like they'd be shutting down and then I would clam up and I would kind of shut down and I wouldn't be able to help them. I wouldn't even know how to send a follow-up message without following up,
Yeah, so so you started to learn from the training because you were in our advanced NEPQ 3.0 program. So that's like where you have access to the 50-hour virtual training portal, and then you have a group training from our trainers on a monthly basis. So what you learned is you're now learning how to use your tonality and questioning to get the prospect to let their guard down. Because there's one of two things that can happen when we enter into a sales conversation. It doesn't matter if it's an outbound lead, inbound lead, cold call, if I'm on the doors, if I'm in a business, it doesn't matter the industry. You're typically within the first 7 to 12 seconds of any sales conversation you're in, as you know, your prospects are picking up on social cues from you based on your tonality and what you're saying and asking that triggers their brain to react in one of two ways. And as you know, if you come across too bubbly, like too excited, right? Like the stereotypical used car salesperson. No pun intended. We train a lot of car salespeople that crush it now because they've learned how to do it the right way. But if we come across too excited, I don't mean be boring. If we come across too like aggressive, if we come across needy and attached, and we don't know what to say and ask, how to use our tone, it triggers the prospect's brain to go into fight or flight mode. Just tell me how much it's going to cost. I'll tell you if I'm interested. Oh, we don't need that. Oh, I've already talked with somebody about that, right? And they try to get rid of you, right? Now, you're learning now is how to use your tone with the right questions and how to come across more neutral, more unbiased, like you're not quite sure you can help yet. You're not saying those words, but you're coming across like you don't know enough details about what's going on to know how you can help them. You come across more collective and more calm and especially detached. And now what you're learning is your prospects, you're triggering them to become curious enough to let their guard down and actually open up to you. Hey, if you want to watch more videos like this so you can learn how to sell more of your products and services for your industry, go ahead and click on the subscribe button. My only warning would be this. If you're going to subscribe, do not share this channel with your friends who compete with you. So if you have friends that are in the same industry that sell the same thing you do, you don't want to show them this channel because you don't want to compete with them. You don't want them to learn what I'm going to show you here. Only share this with other salespeople, other people you know that are in a different industry that you're not competing with. Now,
Absolutely.
When you've learned that, where have your sales gone?
Oh.
Yeah, that's what. So you've already gone from about 5 to 6 to 7 grand a month to 20,000 plus, and you're only 3 months in, correct?
Yeah, really getting back in the field and implementing. Yeah.
Okay, good. And that's the thing. You're only 3 months in. So in 3 months from now, if you plug in and you keep learning the training, you start doing even more than that, right? Okay, so let's. I want to have you give a few different examples of a few different questions that maybe we've trained you how to ask, and let's talk about that. And then I want you guys to ask questions here. So what's your biggest question you want to ask Jen about an EPQ? What's your biggest question? Maybe you struggle with something in sales. And I want you to ask Jen, put it in the comments. Now, let us know what industry you're in. So if you say, I sell life insurance, or I sell cybersecurity, whatever it is, tell us your industry, and if you do inbound or outbound or cold calling, and then tell us what your question is, and we're going to pick probably the best 5 or 6 questions, and me and Jen will answer them. So, okay, so do you get inbound leads? You just talk with people? How do you build your business?
Yeah, inbound. I mean, I'm the type of person though, like literally whenever I leave my home, I get into conversation with people, and I don't necessarily pitch them, but I know the way to work a conversation. So people either ask me how I have so much energy, or like, hey, like, what do you do for work? And so
everybody's going to ask that. Yeah. So you start to get into a two-way conversation, and then I'm assuming that leads to you booking in like a call on Zoom or the phone, right?
Yeah, or like getting together if they're in person, like
coffee or something. Okay. So what's a good maybe connection question you've learned, and what causes it? What does it do with the prospect? How do they react to it? Just give and there's several connection questions you have to ask for industry, but just give us one.
Well, I mean, as far as connecting, it's really like asking people like, hey, what's inspired you to, even want to learn more? Like, what's inspired you to, connect with me, or even ask that, like, what's going on for you that, just essentially, like that's pretty much what I say.
Yeah, and you could even do it. Let's say if you're like since you're in network marketing, let's say you're driving down the road with somebody in Uber. I don't know, I'm just making this up. And you start having a conversation, and then let's say you meet on Zoom 3 days later, you could even reword that and say, hey, so when we were talking in the car, what was it that kind of we were going over that caused you to, want to look into this further? Oh, well, when you said this, blah, 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 blah. Now, how do your prospects react to that type of connection question?
So I kind of like leverage things in the beginning of our conversation too, depending on who they are, where I kind of disarm them from the beginning, and I'll say something like, like everyone today has some sort of like, ache, pain, or ailing condition. Like I used to be so chronically ill myself. So people are already feeling safe with me. Or if we're talking about business, and I'm just talking about how bad things used to be at work. So people are already feeling safe, and they literally just start opening up and telling me sometimes TMI type things about what's going on in their life and
Sure.
what they're looking for help with.
Yeah. Okay, good. So you're getting them to let their guard down. They feel comfortable enough to open up to you. That's building trust, right? You're the expert. You're the trusted authority. There's other connection questions you have to ask after that, but we don't have time here on this live. What's a good situation question you ask that really helps them start to maybe understand what the real situation is?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much like, how long has this been going on for?
Yeah, if it's on the health side, right?
Even with business, if they're looking for a change, because I mean, there's so many people who are either wildly unfulfilled, and it's very interesting. A lot of people will tell you they feel borderline suicidal with how bad their work is, or how much they've been missing their children and they need more time or better finances. So a big one is asking people how long this has been going on for.
Yeah, that's one good one. I mean, even with situation questions, you'd probably, what do you do for a living? What do you do for work? Right? Because you're trying to, if you're on the recruiting side, you're trying to find out what their current situation is.
Here's people kind of just like dump on me right from the beginning, so it's like I don't even always have an opportunity to just ask all these questions.
Yeah, for sure, depending on the scenario. Okay, let's take a couple questions and then we're going to keep diving in here. Let's see here. We got a few. Ask you guys questions quick. Okay, from Eric Schillinger. Hi Jen, great to meet you. With respect to monitoring your close rates, can you provide a quick summary of how NEPQ has taken you to a higher level? How's it taken you to a higher level in your mind? From Eric.
For me, the biggest thing is my confidence. So I was sharing with Jeremy that I was a person who I would get very like triggered to the point where I just didn't know how to appropriately conduct a conversation. So me having that confidence, me being disarmed and detached has just completely elevated things, because I'm able to speak to people, they're opening up to me, and I'm getting a lot of people, like I don't even have to go through the entire presentation or the entire conversation, and people are just asking me right off the rip, like, hey, what's the next step? Like, hey, how do I get started? And of course I'll pull back and I'm like, well, hang on a second. So I'm still qualifying them, but I have people just getting engaged right
well,
away.
let's make sure this is what you're looking for first. So we want to push away a little bit to get them to pull you back in even further, because there's more trust there, right?
And I learned that from Marco inside of the trainings, because like when we were doing some role play and I was like, just like melting over what he was doing. I'm like, if I was the client, and he's like, no, like this isn't the time. And I'm like, that's really good. You don't want to jump as soon as they're ready. You don't want to seem desperate.
Yeah, you still want to keep their guard down, because if you jump too quick, sometimes it'll freak people out and they'll start to move back. But if I kind of push them away a little bit, not negative, I'm not saying you shouldn't do this, but I'm saying, well, we're going to make sure this is what you're looking for first. I mean, you've only started talking with me for the last 10 minutes. I mean, goodness gracious. So and then I'm right back into it. So I push them away. They have more trust. They pull me back in. They look at me as more, this person's expert. He doesn't need my business. He doesn't need this. Like, he's already got tons of clients coming to him. When we're needy and try to jump into it, we're viewed differently. We're viewed as like all the other salespeople trying to sell them something, and they start to treat you that way, and that's why you get objections. That was good. Okay, Eric, hopefully that answered your question on there as well. Okay, let's go to maybe a good problem awareness question. What's a good problem awareness question you've learned to ask from the training courses and the the group training calls with us that's really taking you to this new level? I mean, you're only 3 months in, you've already more than tripled sales already.
Yeah. So we'll talk about business, because I'm like leaning more into the business side of things. So it's really like, okay, so people tell you what they're doing already for work, and asking them like, well, what do you actually like about what you're doing? And they'll say little things, and it's like, okay, well, that seems good and all. Now, what's going on that really has you looking for something else, that has you feeling like this, you're yearning for something new?
I like that.
Like, well, like this is what's going on. This is what I don't like. Like, this is the problem, yada yada. People just like pouring. Well, is there anything else if you really thought about it? It's
That's
like,
good. You want me to show you how to tweak that where it'll work even better?
Yeah, show me.
Okay.
Show all of us.
You see, you're still missing. See, you're only 3 months in. You haven't learned this type of stuff.
I'm not Jeremy Meyer yet.
Hey, I've got a few more years of practice, right? So, I mean, John, you've been a firefighter the last 12 years. I mean, it's a fairly decent career. I mean, what's caused you to feel like you might want to start your own business? Now, there's a lot that I just did there. You want to break it down to you? Okay. So first, I mean, I'm skeptical there. I remember, who has the problems, you or the prospect? The prospect, not the salesperson, right? So I've got to get them to qualify to me, not me qualify to them. I'm not the one that has the problems. I'm the one that can solve the problems, though, right? So I mean, John, I'm not understanding. You've been a firefighter for the past 12 years. I mean, it's a fairly decent career. Now, why would I say that's a fairly decent career? What type of tone am I using there?
I'm not good at quiz type stuff. It's not the curious. Is it the curious tone? I'm still learning.
No, I know. You see, once you graduate 3.0, it gets more advanced, okay? And that's a fairly decent job. See, I'm seeding doubt. I'm seeding that it's not that great of a job, but I'm not telling him that's not great of a job because he'll get defensive, right? He'll be like, well, I like my job, right? I mean, that's a fairly decent job. I mean, see, I'm implying doubt. I'm seeding doubt by my tone. It's kind of a skeptical, like I'm getting them to doubt what they're doing. But I'm not saying it, but my voice implies it, okay? Now, I can't say it fast. I can't say, so you've been a firefighter the last 12 years. That's a fairly decent job. What's caused you to feel like you might want to start your own business? See, that's too monotone. It's too flat. There's no emotion there, okay? I mean, that's a fairly decent job. I mean, what's caused you to feel like you might want to start your own thing? Now, why would I say, what's caused you to feel like you might want to start your own business, though? Why would I say that? Remember, I want to push them away a little bit to get them to defend themselves on what?
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
Why they need to do this, right?
Yeah, so now not only do they tell me why they want to start their own business for your industry, but more importantly, they're telling themselves. And that's self-persuasion. That gets them to persuade themselves. See, that's what I'm doing. Pushing away a little bit so they defend themselves on why they want to change their situation. Okay? But it's all in my tone. I mean, you've been a nurse the past 7 years. I mean, that's a fairly decent job. I mean, what's caused you to feel like you might want something different? Notice how I'm pacing out the question. I'm verbal, pausing, pacing. The biggest reason why salespeople get vague, generalized, surface level answers, as you know, Jen, is because they ask the questions too fast and it gives the prospect no time to internalize what they just asked. So if I pace out the question with verbal pausing in between like certain keywords I want to focus on, I cause the brain to immediately internalize and think deeper what I'm asking. So I get more open and I get more emotion coming out of the prospect's answers. Are you with me? See, you still got some things to learn. There you go.
I got a lot to learn.
Here you go. All right, let's keep going here. All right, let's talk about let's answer maybe one of these questions here. Let's see here. Medical sales, DME, pain management, East End. Okay, medical sales, big industry we train in, Marcus. We train 161 different industries. Yours is probably one of the top 30, 35 we train. Cold calling, but in clinic, getting past gatekeepers. I don't know if that's your question. Can you ask the question a little bit better? Be more specific on your question there. Let's see. Jason, I just started 2.0. It's much easier to talk to people. Good for you. That's a good start. Okay, let's see here. Jason, Whitney, cold leads by corporate office spectrum charter, door knocking. Very familiar with your space. Train a lot of people in your space. We have the best value. Jason, I'm going to go out on a limb and say your competitors are probably saying that they have the best value too. Even if you have the best value, like Jen knows, nobody cares because every salesperson says they have the best value. So they don't believe you even if you do, right? Okay, I need them to want to figure out they have a problem and stick with our solution despite the known reliability they currently have. Okay, Jason, can you ask me a question though? Because you're giving me statements and I don't know what to answer for you. You guys got to ask the questions here. Me and Jen will help you, okay? All right, Jen, let's go into solution awareness. There's a lot of other problem awareness questions we got to clarify. We got to probe for every industry. That's all in our virtual training courses for clients. But let's get into solution awareness because not only do we have to help them find problems, and let's talk about that. How many problems do we want to help the prospect find? 1, 2, 5, how many?
I mean, I don't know. how many problems do we want to help them find? I mean,
Yeah.
there's like the main problem, then there's the underlying problems that are
Yeah.
coming from that.
Well, the point is we want to help them to find as many as we can, right? Because if you just help them find that they have one problem, right? Give me a problem that maybe the average prospect has that you talk to.
They have a soul crushing job. They're just completely miserable. They're unfulfilled. They hate their life.
So they're unfulfilled.
Yeah.
But if that's the only problem that we help them find, how big is my gap?
Oh, it's so small.
It's small, right? Because maybe they can get into hiking and become more fulfilled. See, you're not necessarily, maybe they can figure out something else to solve that. But if I can help them understand that they want to make more money, because you're in network marketing, so that would be a solution you offer that has a business, they make more money. More time freedom. Okay, so there's 3 problems, right, that I'm solving. Maybe I help them start to see that maybe the water they're drinking is causing what? Health issues, right?
Issues.
Okay, maybe what are some health issues that you typically see from clients that your solution solves?
Everything under the sun, anything from skin conditions all the way up to stomach issues, fatigue, cancer. We can't make any medical claims. There's no medical
Yeah,
claims.
I know.
What the people come to us for,
Yeah.
diabetes, MS, Parkinson's, like
Yeah.
anything you can think of.
That's what I'm saying. Let's say the person has diabetes and you help them solve that, you help them have more time freedom, you help them make more money, you help them overcome the lack of fulfillment. Those are 4 things. The gap goes way bigger. Because even if they're like, oh, well, maybe I'm going to go play basketball on the weekends with my friends, that'll give me more fulfillment, there's still 3 problems that they can't solve. So the bigger the gap, because I'm better at problem finding, the more problems I help them find that they didn't really understand they have, the more likely they are to want to change. You know, what are the 2 biggest emotional drivers that causes a human being to want to change? Pain and the fear of future pain. So if we can't help the prospect relive their pain of their current situation, they don't feel any need to change. And that's in every industry. And if they don't feel any need to change, that's why you guys get so many objections and lose deals that you could be making. You just haven't learned the right skills yet. All right, Jen, let's keep going here. So let's talk about what's a good solution awareness question that you've learned. There's several for your space that gets maybe the prospect to start to see what the future looks like once the problems are solved.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, something I like to ask people first and foremost is, have you been out there looking for anything else, right? Because I want to know, is there quote unquote competition to kind of like break down what's been going on there, right?
Yeah.
Like, what have they been out there looking for? You know, what's that look like for them? Do they feel like that could give them the fulfillment that they're looking for? Is that going to help also, improve their health and like, the time that they're looking for with their family? Or does that still feel like it's going to be taking away from their life, right? So it's that type of question. And then really going into like, if you were to get started with us, if everything made sense for you, how do you see your life being different than it is now and than it has been for you?
Yeah. So let's say that we come in, we're able to, help you start the business, and, let's say that we're able to help you get up to the, the income level that you mentioned, whatever they said. Let's say they're like, I want to make $100,000 a year. I'm just making something up. Let's say that we're able to give you the business here, help you kind of get up to that level. You're gonna have to put in the work, obviously, to get there. But what would you do with the extra money coming in? Oh, I would do this, I would do that, I would buy a new car, I would get my mom out of debt, whatever, right? So they're also giving you logical answers of what they're gonna do once the problem's solved, the money problem for your industry. And then I might lean in, because I've got to not just have logical answers, because that doesn't cause a human being to want to change. I got to then open up them emotionally. You being able to do those things, what would that do for you personally? Lower tone, concerned tone, okay? When you ask those type of questions, how do your prospects react?
They're just like, oh my gosh, they just start like, they like their dreams just open up and expand, and they're just like, oh my gosh, I would do this and I would do that. Or sometimes they're even a little reluctant and it's still very surface level, and it's just kind of like, well, can you tell me more about that? If they're like, oh, I want to travel, it's like, ooh, where do you want to go? Like, where do you see yourself being, and what would you do there? And really breaking it down, because a lot of people don't even know how to do that for themselves. They're so conditioned and so stuck in the bondage that they've been in.
Yeah, 100%. Jason has a good question here. How do you get them to want you when they don't really need you? So Jason, I'm assuming you're asking, how do you get them to buy when they don't feel like they need you? How would you answer that question, Jen? For your industry, that's going to be, I'll give an answer for his industry, but for your industry.
How do I get them to want me if they don't need me?
Yeah.
Well, you came to me for a reason, didn't you?
Yeah. Well, the problem is, Jason, is 99.999% of the prospects you're ever going to talk to don't really understand that they even have a problem when you first start talking to them. Would we be right? Or maybe they know they have a problem, but they don't really understand how bad the problem really is. And they don't understand the consequences of what happens if they don't do anything about solving the problem. So Jason, it is up to you, the salesperson, to be able to learn the right questions to ask with the right tonality that seeds doubt in the prospect's mind that maybe their situation is not as good as what they thought, right? Which opens them up to consider other alternatives. If you haven't learned how to do that, you're going to lose a lot of deals that you could be making. Because as Jen, as you know, I can tell, look, we train 161 industries. There's only 163 according to Forbes, and there's subsets of each one. Every single industry has the same problems. Oh, my prospects don't need me. My prospects don't have the money. My prospects don't do this. There's no industry that's like some golden industry where they're just 100% of laydowns. So Jason, you got to learn the right questions to ask with the right tonality that causes the prospects to let their guard down and trust you enough to emotionally open up to you and tell you what's really going on rather than lying to you and trying to get rid of you. Now, Jason, if you want to learn those skills, message me directly now, because our training programs for our clients, we have clients in your industry, Jason, that are crushing it now, that were about to get fired. And now 6 months later, they're in the top of their field. Okay, big industry for us. All right, Jen, what about a good consequence question? What's a good consequence question you've learned from the training courses that's really caused your prospects to kind of open up and be like, man, I really got to change my situation?
Gosh, I'm trying to think of like a good one, right? Because everything's so kind of different. But I do better with this when I'm like in the flow of a conversation.
I know.
Yeah. So consequence question, I mean, it's one of those things like, okay, so, you know, this has been going on for you, and from what you've said, it really doesn't seem like it's been ideal, and it's had an impact on this area and that area, and you feel like it's going to impact this area. So what if you don't do anything about this problem, and you know XYZ gets even worse for you? Then what happens?
What if you don't do anything about your diabetes and this gets worse? I could just ask like that. If they have bad diabetes, right? If you're on the health side, whatever it is, you're just plugging in their situation to that consequence question. If it's more on the business side, well, what happens if you don't do anything about this and you just stay at your job the next 3, 5, 6, 7 years from now? See, I'm going to start off with the challenging tone, and then I'm going to end with more of a concerned tone, a tone that shows empathy, right? Now, when you've learned how to ask consequence questions, how do your prospects typically react?
Well, it's kind of a mixed bag. Sometimes they're just like, oh, it's going to be like the worst, and like I got to change, but then...
Well, hold on. For you, why look at changing now? I mean, why not push it down the road like a lot of people do who never end up getting out of their job? Well, the reason why I need to do it now is, see, that's just a probing. We're looping back around and probing. You haven't learned that yet. I know you haven't.
I mean, I forgot. I can't retain it all at the same time. I wish I could. We're getting there.
You're getting there. Okay, and I cut you off. What else were you saying?
Yeah, so it's either where people are, you know, still where you have to go back into peeling back layers and breaking things down, or other people are just like, no, like literally this can't go on anymore. So like, what is the next steps? And that still goes back to like, well, hang on a second. Yeah.
Well, even if they're like, well, I don't know, I have to figure something out. Well, do you want to have to keep going through all that if you didn't have to? Well, no, if I didn't have to. Okay. So there's just other things you can do depending on their answers where you got to re-loop back around and reframe their way of thinking. I'm going to have to teach you some of that. Okay, here's a couple other questions. Amanda, she's got a good question for you, Jen. When you're leading with the business, what is the one thing that you use to keep the prospect engaged when you introduce the water ionizer? That's specific to your industry.
I've always led with the water ionizer, so that's never been a problem. Like I used to be very sick with chronic illness, so the water has always been my thing. So I'm just, yeah, I'm
So
just all in
she's
about it.
saying, what's the one thing that you use to keep them engaged when you introduce it?
To keep them engaged when I introduce it as far as the business aspect.
Maybe it sounds like she's losing people. It sounds like she's doing what you were doing, maybe in a different company or same company. I'm not sure, but it sounds like she's losing prospects when she starts going through like what you're actually selling.
Well, that can happen, and there's a two-part thing to this. One, it's kind of a reflection of ourselves, right? Like that energy that we put out there. So like how confident and solid are you in the water ionizer, and the belief in that being the product that is the vehicle, right? So also letting people know, like the ionizer, this is the vehicle. Like it doesn't matter if you care about health and wellness. You don't even ever have to use this water system. This is literally the vehicle. It is an in-home ATM machine that is going to get you to your dreams.
Yeah. So it depends on the context of the conversation, right? If they've been talking more about the business, well, yeah, these are the products that people purchase when they start the business. They come to us because they want to prevent a lot of these illnesses from happening, but they also want to make more money. So it depends on what, so there's different questions or different things you're going to say depending on the context leading up to that, which can be 10,000 different things here. Juan, I'm selling SaaS data analytics software. SaaS is a huge industry for us, one of the top 7. The average sales is around 35 to 50K. Our sales cycle takes around 90 days to close. How do I get this down to 30 days or less? Juan, are you one of our clients? Because we train all of that in our virtual training portals. Because your sales cycle will always be long if you don't know how to get the prospect to let their guard down and emotionally open up to you and tell you what their real problems are. If you're just asking surface level questions like consultative questions where they give you logical answers in return, your prospects will keep delaying, pushing it down the road. Because human beings, do they buy on logic or emotion? Emotion. Brain studies prove that 100%, okay? So if we're only learning how to ask logical-based questions and we don't know how to use our tone to see different things in their brain, you're always going to have long sales cycles. I'll give you an example, Juan. My second industry I sold in was on the enterprise level, debt relief services, B2B, okay? So when I came into that job, I remember the VP of sales says, oh, the average sales cycle is like 9 to 12 months. I'm like, well, why? I'm always questioning why. I don't just accept what everybody says. And he's like, oh, the prospects, we have to meet them several times. We have to convince them our prices are higher, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, well, that's just because the salespeople haven't learned how to build a big enough gap to trigger enough urgency for the prospect to want to change now and do that with you rather than pushing it down the road. That's a sales skill problem, not an industry thing. And what was my average sales cycle? The average sales cycle for the company and industry was 9 to 12 months. Mine was under 90 days. Why? Because I had the right skills. I knew how to build the gap. I knew how to trigger urgency because they have problems that I could solve. Okay, so hopefully that answered your question, Juan. Your question is like several hours of training on how to do that. It's I love the question, but you're going to have to get in our virtual training portals and group train with their trainers if you want to learn those skills. So you stop losing a lot of those deals. Okay, Jen, any last words of advice that you would give, maybe even a new salesperson that's just getting into any type of sales, or maybe even a vet, and where they can go from here to even sell more? And just last words, just any advice you'd give them.
Any advice I could give. So here's the thing. Everything comes down to our ability to help people. And one of the biggest things that we've always been told, but what I specifically really learned and was able to embrace and immerse into and implement, like once I got into NAPQ, or once I started gaining the skills rather, was it's really all about being able to listen to your prospect, you don't matter. You don't matter at all. Like you are really essentially no part of the equation.
Yeah.
You're just the person who's going to help them. Everything is about them, but you really need to learn how to harness that and how to become that person who's going to be able to help that your prospect, your potential client, and then but it's not just about hearing them. You also need to learn how to help them, right? Because it's not about you, it's about them and what they need.
Yeah.
So you really need to gain the skills, but hear them, help them, and then you're golden.
Yeah, because the problem is like if you can't learn the right skills, you can't solve your prospects' problems. If you can't learn the right sales ability, you are hurting your prospects because their problems stay the same. They stay in the status quo and nothing ever changes. And whose responsibility is it? It's ours, the salesperson, not your prospects. I see so many salespeople that blame the prospects, and I'm like, that's why you're never going to sell more. Because you don't think it's you. You think it's your prospects. It's not like they don't have the money. The money already exists. It's just they're already currently spending that same money on a priority in their mind that's more of a priority to them at that point than what you're offering. That's in every industry. I can tell you that's in every industry. Your job as a salesperson is to reframe their way of thinking, where by the end of that conversation or conversations, whether you sell B2C or B2B, they now view your priority, your solution, as a much more of a priority than where they were currently spending that same money. Okay, so I want to make sure everybody understands that. When you start developing the right skill level, and the right tonality, the right questions, the right body language, the right facial expressions, everything, you start to sell way more, and you're able to help your prospects actually get what they want. Because a lot of times they just don't know what they even need when you first start talking to them. Would I be right, Jen?
Absolutely. Amen to that. They have no idea.
Yeah.
They need us.
Yeah, exactly. Well, congratulations. I know you've only been in the training I know you started a year ago, but then you were kind of out of it for 8 months with the concussion and all that crazy stuff. So I'm glad your health is back. Dove into the training. You've already more than tripled your sales, tripled your income. So congratulations. Just stick to the training. You keep doing that another 90 days, 6 months, 12 months. Good things start to happen. You keep going up in sales, always like that. All right, everybody, we love you. Hope that helped you today. Make sure that you're on next week. We will have a live next Tuesday at 6:15 p.m. Eastern here in the Facebook group. Hope that helped you. Hopefully we got a few of your questions answered here. I know we've got a lot more people that jumped in. Now, who on here, type in me if you want to learn the skills necessary so you can sell a lot more of your products and services than you are now. Type in me in the comments if you want to learn the skills that will be necessary for you to sell more, to help more of your prospects. Okay? I'm assuming I should see everybody on here type in me. We've never had salespeople or companies come to us and say, we want to learn how to sell less. Typically they come to us because they want to learn how to sell more. So type in me if you want to learn the right skills to sell more. Because Jen, if you didn't learn those skills, where would you be now?
I'd be very frustrated and struggling and turning people off left and right. It wouldn't be good for anyone.
Yeah. Well, that's a good part about learning more advanced skills. You typically do a lot better than you were before. Jen, congratulations. I know it's late where you're at in Connecticut. Well done. We'll see you. We'll see you on the training calls.
All right. Thanks, Jeremy.
All right. Hope you enjoyed the training today, the interview I did with one of our clients, Jen. She's crushing it, direct sales industry. Now, if you're wanting to learn how to sell more, if you want to go ahead and subscribe to this channel, like I said earlier, just make sure if you subscribe, don't share it with your friends who are in the same industry who might be competing against you because you don't want them to learn these skills I'm going to train you on this channel. Only share it with people who are outside of your industry who you don't compete with. Hope you enjoyed it today. We'll see you in the next training.